Coming up on today's show, we're learning more about yesterday's strong storms that rolled through the area. Also, we're going to examine what's behind the Justice Department's move to cancel police reform settlements. And we're going to look into how overall safety is playing into MARTA's massive renovation project at its 5 Point station. This is The Take. Let's get it. Hello and welcome. I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines and we look at the why and how stories are impacting you and your community. We invite the experts in to share their take on today's top stories, and we're also trying to have just a little bit of fun as well. All right, this morning we're going to start off with the details from yesterday's storm system that rolled through the area. We now know that it was an EF1 tornado that touched down in Butts County. The National Weather Service says the twister packed winds up to 90 miles per hour. It started in Spalding County and stayed on the ground for more than about 10 miles through parts of Henry and Butts County. Despite the widespread damage, no serious injuries have been reported. That's some good news right there. Here now with the latest is meteorologist Ryan Willis from the National Weather Service in Peachtree City. Hello, Ryan. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, we know it was an EF1 tornado that touched down just to the south of our area here in Atlanta. Is that rare for that early in the morning to have an EF1 tornado touch down?
Not necessarily rare. We do have a number of overnight tornado events in this part of the country, but certainly not the peak time for tornado occurrence, when a lot of people are asleep and that sort of thing.
Right, we had a couple of tornado warnings in that area. Was that the only tornado found as far as the damage goes?
At this point, that is the only confirmed tornado we have. We completed that survey yesterday. We are going on another storm survey today that will be underway shortly up in Gordon County to determine whether or not a tornado occurred up there a little earlier in the night. And then we're looking at a couple of other spots potentially further to the north up in Dayton, Chattooga, where we're kind of communicating with the emergency management officials up there to determine if we need to take a closer look.
Is that the only area we're going to? You're going up to the north, you said, up toward Gordon County. Is that the only other area, I think, you're suspecting that maybe tornado damage is found?
Yes, at this point, that is the only area that we are deploying out today to take a look at some of that damage.
What goes into a survey? Walk us through that.
Yeah, so for a survey to take place, obviously we take a look at radar as well as any damage reports that may corroborate what we're seeing on radar, send out usually a team of meteorologists to go and take a closer look at the damage and see if it lines up with where potentially we had rotation or indications of a tornado on radar. And then we take a look at what kind of damage there was and what kind of wind would take to cause that type of damage, and then from there we can determine peak winds as well as whether or not it was an EF01 or so on during that survey.
We often hear people talk about how they hear the sound of a train when they hear those type of winds coming through. Is that always what you would hear when it comes to a tornado, or can you get that same sound when it comes to straight line winds?
Yeah, I mean, certainly you can get some very loud noises potentially that sound even, like a train, even with just straight line winds if they're strong enough. Also in this part of the country, we have a lot of trees. Obviously, it gets very noisy whenever you have really strong winds blowing through those trees. It can be strong straight line winds or tornado, not necessarily just one or the other.
Let me ask you this. When obviously you guys will go out to a place where you've seen a Doppler indicated tornado, you know that you're going to survey those areas. Will you go to other places that may be lining up with what could be tornado damage when people send in reports?
Sure, yeah. Sometimes even if we don't necessarily see a really strong indication on radar, if we get reports of some damage that's more significant that needs a closer look, whether it be a potential tornado or even some more intense straight line winds, we definitely can send a survey team in those situations as well. It doesn't always have to be just radar led to get out there.
One of our area would be Claiborne County, which is over into Alabama. I know you guys probably don't cross the border much to go over there. What can you tell us about that particular tornado?
So that is the Birmingham, Alabama office. So they'll be taking a look at those areas within Alabama to determine what may or may not have occurred over there. I don't have any updates at this point from what that office may or may not be seeing, but they will be taking a look at some of the locations over there in Alabama.
Obviously, okay, great. Yeah, I know you guys collaborate often, especially
Yes.
our neighboring offices, and so I know these guys will be working with you to determine that. Anything else you can tell us about obviously the forecast is looking beautiful for the next couple of days and through the holiday weekend. Can you give us more on that?
Sure. Yeah. Like you said, not bad for the next couple of days. Obviously, as we get later into the weekend and towards Memorial Day, maybe the chance for some scattered thunderstorms does start to return. But all in all, not looking too bad, and nothing on the order of what we had with the more widespread severe a couple of nights ago. So looking pretty good.
One last question for you. We often, you were used to talking, I guess I'm old school as well, weather radio, right? Especially when we have overnight storms. We'll tell people, hey, make sure you have your weather radio on, or a way to get the alerts, because a lot of times people go to sleep and maybe kind of forget that maybe bad weather is coming. Is it better technology now to use your cell phone for those alerts, or do you stick with the old-fashioned radio?
So we like to promote both. Obviously, cell phone technology now is great. Whenever we have tornado warnings or a more significant, severe thunderstorm warning or a flash flood warning that kind of tips into the trigger that would set off your phone. So that's a great way to get the warnings. But we also do like to still promote the NOAA weather radio as a secondary. That way, if for some reason the cell service or something fails, that's still a tried and true older method that still works pretty reliably. So we still like to promote weather radios as well.
See that? Old school still in place, man. Tried and true. I like the way you said that, Ryan. Really appreciate it. Ryan Willis with the National Weather Service out of Peachtree City. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Our 7-day outlook, as Ryan just said, is beautiful for the next couple of days. Can't complain about much, right? We'll have a few clouds here and there, but that's about it. 84 degrees, your afternoon high temperature for today. 80 tomorrow. Got a front that's coming through the area. It's dry, but we'll reinforce that cool air, so we'll only get up to about 80 degrees. We'll have some clouds around early on. I think those clouds will clear out late afternoon. We'll start off with the sun on Saturday, and then more clouds will build in during the afternoon on Saturday. Staying dry, though. 82 degrees for the high temperature. 20% chance for now on Sunday. We'll watch that, of course. 40% chance for Memorial Day. If you're going to be grilling out, to pay attention to the skies with scattered thunderstorms in the area. Not everyone will get wet, but there'll be a few around. We'll see a 50% chance for that rain as we head into Tuesday, as many will be going back to work. 83 degrees will be the high, and that will linger into Wednesday morning. For now, a 30% chance with 78 degrees for your afternoon high temperature. All right, don't forget, you can now stream local weather forecasts, in-depth weather discussions, and extended coverage, especially during severe weather events, all on your schedule. Check us out, 11Alive, our weather impact 24/7 right here on 11Alive Plus. You can even watch it right now, but the take is on. Don't go anywhere. We're back right after this. All right, welcome back to the show. Tragedy unfolding overnight in the nation's capital. 2 staff members of Israel's embassy shot and killed outside the Capitol Jewish Museum late last night, and a suspect has been taken into custody. Joining us now is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr. Alice, catch us up on what we know at this hour with that tragedy that took place in D.C.
Yeah, good morning, Chesley. The latest information is that there are a number of investigators that are swarming a house that is connected to the suspect here in the Chicago area. We're just tracking new developments about what exactly they may be looking for, what they may uncover there. But this is a home connected to the 30-year-old suspect, Elias Rodriguez. He is from the Chicago area, we've been told. And what we learned from Metro Police here is that he was seen pacing outside of the Capitol Jewish Museum last night, then approached a group of 4 people, pulled out a handgun, and opened fire. Police say he then went into the museum, was arrested, and pointed out where he left the gun, while also chanting "Free Palestine." So that has pointed investigators to look closely at whether this was a hate crime or potentially an act of terrorism. We're also learning a lot more about the victims, who were both staff members at the Israeli embassy here in Washington, a young couple, Sarah Milgram and Yaron Lishinsky. Israel's ambassador to the United States spoke about them overnight, saying that Yaron had just bought a ring, that he had the intention of proposing to his girlfriend Sarah in Jerusalem next week, and he called them a beautiful couple.
We'll hear more about the emotional reactions from Israel's officials. Talk to us more about that.
Right. So there's outpouring of grief from Capitol Hill, from people in Israel, from people across the country. And we heard from the Israeli foreign minister saying that he had spoken with the father of Yaron Lashinsky and that he told him that his son was like a diplomatic warrior who had fallen just like any soldier on the battlefield. I can also note that NBC News has been able to verify a LinkedIn profile that's associated with Sarah Milgram, the victim, and I was reading through it, and she speaks in it about wanting to work at the intersection of peace building and religion, and she talks a lot about wanting to build bridges between Israelis and Palestinians, and it's difficult and painful to think about this young couple. They thought they were getting engaged. She wanted to be engaged in this process of peace building, and instead we're having this conversation this morning.
Wow. All right. So I also want to quickly shift gears here with you. The House passed the president's big, beautiful domestic policy bill by one vote. What are the chances that it will pass the Senate?
In this version, pretty slim. There's been pretty clear statements from some Republicans in the Senate that they want to see some fairly substantial changes to the legislation. What's important to note here is just like in the House, where this passed with completely Republican votes, there were 2 Republicans who opposed it, but the House could afford to lose 3, so that was enough for the margins. In the Senate, they're not going to require any Democrats to get on board either because of kind of the mechanism by which this is being processed. It can pass by a simple majority. But even still, there are a number of Senate Republicans that have some issues with this. And the chief among them is what we've been talking about with how much this is predicted to add to the deficit, up to $3.8 trillion, according to some independent reports that have come out. And that's what was an issue for a number of fiscal conservatives in the House as well. But for the most part, President Trump's influence and the House leadership was able to kind of work through that with them and get them on board. But in the Senate, there are going to be people who are going to say there has to be more baked into this to pay for all of the new spending, specifically those massive tax cuts, as well as increases to immigration, to the military, that the cuts that are included are just not enough to offset how much this is going to add to the deficit. And that is not something that Republicans generally want to put their name on.
All right, NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr, really appreciate your insight. Thanks so much. All right. Yesterday, the U.S. Justice Department moved to cancel police reform settlements with Minneapolis and Louisville, which aimed to overhaul their police departments. It came following the high-profile deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor in 2020. The Trump administration also withdrew investigative findings in 6 other police departments accused of civil rights violations. Here to talk more about this is Kama Pierce, Chief Program Officer for the National Center for Civil Rights and Civil and Human Rights. Welcome to the show.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Give us your take when you first heard this news yesterday.
Well, it does seem kind of symbolic with the timing of this, but it's not really surprising with what we've been seeing with the administration and pulling back with independence of states. But we know in our system in the United States, it's the checks and balances that are really important. And consent decrees are the power of the federal government to have that oversight when there are abuses. So they're not going into every police department, but when there is some systemic abuse and evidence, we can empower the DOJ to go in and do an investigation and enter into these consent decrees. And it's way before the Biden administration. I mean, there was a consent decree in Los Angeles in 2001.
Mm-hmm. How might this policy reversal affect ongoing efforts to reform police practices in cities documented with patterns of misconduct?
Yeah, that is a concern, right? And that's the concern everyone has. There is hope that news came out that the departments will still implement some of the things that were put in place with the DOJ under Biden. This is really going to be a case of communities having to self-police. We know that there are wonderful departments out there that do the training, watch the numbers, and are very active in making sure that they are real partners with the communities that they're policing. And we're going to have to depend a little bit more on that if we don't have this oversight. But the oversight is important. History tells us that when the federal government has to step in and get involved and then prematurely, pull out, it could have some disastrous results. Reconstruction era is actually an example of that.
Talk to me specifically about Minneapolis and Louisville. These were two places where, it's going to have obviously a big time effect. Talk to me about those places.
Well, the leaders there say that they're committed to continue to look at, the situation within their police departments and to make sure they train their police and do all those things that the consent decree would ask for anyway. And so it's the local communities really need to hold that leadership and those police departments to that standard to make sure that civil rights violations do not occur within those areas.
What about here in Atlanta?
Atlanta is a great example. We have a great relationship here with our department, with our mayor's office. At the National Center for Civil and Human Rights, actually around 2020, we entered into an agreement with the Auschwitz Institute where we actually have a repair program where we do a course on human rights and protecting human rights and civil rights of citizens. And the Atlanta Police Department goes through that course with us.
Sounds good. All right. In your view,
we'd have to see more. Yeah.
Right. In your view, what role should the federal oversight play in ensuring the accountability of local police departments?
So, I have been an attorney both in the federal system and in the state system, and you would like that the state system and the state police departments police themselves, but we know there are examples of abuses all across the America that stem back, from when we had slave patrols in the 1700s. And so for those departments that are not being responsible, it is important to have that check of the federal government. And so this is a little bit of a backtrack when we don't have that check in place.
How do you think communities, last question for you, how do you think communities and local organizations will respond to this new rollback?
Well, we're already hearing civil rights organizations and local communities are concerned, especially those communities that are deeply impacted with the relationship with the police, Black and brown communities, poorer communities. And so it's going to be really important for local leadership to be that watchdog and to hold the police department accountable if they cannot have that federal oversight. And it's possible, and it has been done. And I think we're going to see more and more of that kind of activity happening on the local level.
Kayma Pierce, really appreciate your insight this morning. Thanks for joining us. We may be talking to you soon. Yeah. All right. Take care. All right. Plenty more stories for you coming up after the break, folks. This is The Take on 11Alive Plus. We're back right after this. All right, welcome back to the show. MARTA is set to start work to renovate its 5 Point station, Atlanta's central transit hub. The $230 million project begins on the heels of recent calls from riders to increase security. Joining us now is Greg Grafita, the MARTA Director of Capital Project Communications. Greg, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having us.
All right, the project at 5 Points is a massive undertaking. It's been going on for years. How glad are you to finally see it get to this particular point?
We are thrilled. It's long overdue. The station has been open for 46 years, and that's 46 years of Atlanta weather and wear and tear, and we are very excited to begin the work to really make this station serve another 50 years.
All right, talk to me about all the bells and whistles that's going to go into this project.
Sure. So the biggest part of this is we are taking down the concrete canopy. Of course, this is this famous 70s, structure that's built above our plaza. It's really a highly engineered structure that is very complicated to take down. So we're going to have to put up shoring to hold the weight and then take it apart piece by piece. So that's really kind of what the major element of this is. That requires us to make some changes to how the station operates. The biggest thing everyone saw on Saturday, this past Saturday, we had to move all of the buses off of Alabama Street so that we can have that space for construction equipment and the crane that's going to deconstruct the building. So most of those buses are running on Forsyth Street, and now they have been detoured to lay over at nearby stations. As far as those train customers, they will all still be able to use the station. You will still be able to ride through the station or transfer as you normally do. If you enter or exit at 5 Points, you will need to use the Forsyth Street entrance.
And so, we were looking at the renderings just a little ago. It looks beautiful. Is this something that you think will anchor a new look for downtown Atlanta?
I think so. I really see it as a complement to a lot of the other investment that's happening in downtown. We intend this to really be a much more functional transit hub as well as a great civic space for downtown Atlanta. Obviously, there's a lot of exciting things happening. You've got all of the development in the Gulch. You have South Downtown. You have Underground. and a lot of other smaller projects throughout the area. And we are really happy to be a partner in seeing the next few years of what downtown looks like.
We've heard the outcry of some riders calling out for safety. How much safety will be going into this project?
Sure. So one thing with the new design of the project, there's going to be much more clear sight lines. We think that it's really going to prevent some of the issues as far as visibility for our customers. I think generally having a new space that really has, that's very clean and new investment and better lighting is going to be something that really, I think, makes all of our customers and other downtown residents feel much safer.
You know, you mentioned some construction delays due to the weather. Everybody blames the weather, right? And so it probably not going to be finished by the time of the World Cup. How much are you worried about this?
Yeah, so this project is really a massive undertaking. We had never intended to have it fully complete by World Cup. Last year, we did explore a schedule that would have allowed us to complete the deconstruction before World Cup. That would have required closing the entire station at the street level so that no customers would be able to enter or exit. We heard a lot of pushback from the community and our customers about that. So we recalibrated, we went back and looked at the schedule, and we came up with a way to keep the station open. But the consequence of that is it will take longer. We are going to have the station open and functioning during World Cup. That Forsyth Street entrance will be open, but it's going to be a construction site above.
Gotcha. All right, Greg Rafita, really appreciate you being with us today, and thanks for the insight.
Hey, thank you so much.
All right, take care. All right, folks, don't go anywhere. Back with my final take right after this. Well, it's going to be a nice day out there, folks. Get out there, try to soak up some of that vitamin D. It's going to be nice. Mostly sunny skies right on through this afternoon. 84 degrees will be the afternoon high temperature. A little bit cooler tomorrow. We got a front that's going to move through the area. We'll increase our clouds briefly. We'll make our temperatures around the 80-degree mark. There will be some spots only in the 70s. 82 degrees for the high on Saturday. That's exactly where we should be for this time of year. I think we'll start off with sun, but clouds will increase late. And then here comes the chance for some rain. The back end of the weekend going into the holiday, Memorial Day Monday, 40% chance for scattered showers. A couple thunderstorms could be around. 86 will be our afternoon high temperature. 50% chance for that rain on Tuesday. And then we'll see it come to an end early on Wednesday, and temperatures will be down around 78 degrees by then. All right, before we go, my final take, you know, it's graduation season. Yes, indeed. And although I'm truly excited for all the graduates out there, attending the ceremony can be a bit rough. You know, it's probably one of the only ceremonies where no matter what you say and how many times you say it, people are just going to break the rules. It's what they're going to do. For example, please hold your applause until all the names are called. That never happens, right? Some mom's going to say, that's my baby. And everybody's going to clap every time a name is called. And then you have that student that holds up the line because they have to do that graduation dance, you know what I mean? Either getting their diploma or after they receive it. So the line gets held up. And then there's this. An exciting graduate at the University at Buffalo wanted to share the moment with his son, so he wants to walk his son across the stage with him. That's a no-no, folks. That's against the rules. But he does it anyway. And so as they try to stop him, he runs up there, and the campus police follows him, and they get up there, and it's an awkward moment. The campus police doesn't know what to do. So he just kind of goes and he graduates. That's the way that works, right? We're going to have to do something about this. We're going to have to figure it out, folks. Everyone wants their moment in the sun, and deservedly so, right? After 4 to 5 years of all that hard work, you made it to this point. Yeah, you got to celebrate, right? I'm just telling you, as a college professor and a college advisor, having to sit through these moments is priceless, but it's also time consuming. I got to do it. Congratulations to all the students out there that may be graduating. That's all we have for you today, folks. Make sure you make it a great day. Thanks for joining us. Try to encourage someone today not to do that dance, that graduation dance. What is that?